Hornets do have some undersized wings and guards that can actually rebound. So you would feel like this team as a whole would take on that team mentality and crashing the boards like LaMelo and Rozier, and Hayward's even a good defensive rebounder. Like, you feel like that should be up.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be by committee with this group. I think we discussed this earlier in the year too. I mean, yeah, you mentioned the few that are good. I mean, Ball's excellent, rebounder in general, really good offensive rebounder too. But Rozier, definitely, and yeah, we'll see with Monk. I mean, he certainly has the athleticism to stick his nose in there and do it. Gosh, talking about these hustle stats, rebounding, and can we just get a shout out to Caleb Martin? That guy. I love watching him play defense. I mean, I love both of those guys. I mean, Caleb and Cody, both excellent defenders. But, you just talk about a guy that will energize his team just with his effort is Caleb Martin. And it is 100% the reason that he is remaining in the rotation. By the way, I looked this up earlier, just kind of a fun little stat. When Caleb Martin plays up a position, so when he plays 3, Hornets are getting sliced up pretty good, about -7 net rating. When he plays his real position, shooting guard, Hornets are +2. I think it was +2, maybe a little less than that, but I thought that was a significant stat, kind of telling for really what his role for this team can be.
Do you think Caleb Martin at practice just practices charges all day and just puts like a little pad on the back and just falls down and falls? Like he sets up for charges so often. It's funny to watch.
Yeah.
My favorite thing he did last night was going up to deny Bam at the rim.
Yeah.
And then he went up and met somebody else up there, and man, just violent. I mean, a guy just puts his body on the line.
Yeah, he does. That he plays like a guy who just, I mean, he's earned everything, his entire basketball career. You can tell. No plays off kind of guy. And again, I think sometimes that can lead him down the wrong path defensively, occasional a mistake, overhelp or whatever. But his ability to just create events is defensively just through like his effort and athleticism is pretty impressive. And I wouldn't have bet, a couple months ago that he would have like usurped Cody, Cody is twin in terms of like standing in the rotation. This has been kind of a lost year for Cody Martin so far, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then real quickly too, last thing I wanted to touch on with, I guess we're about to talk about Zeller here, aren't we?
Yeah,
so I can hold off and just wait till we get to the next question here.
So the next question comes from @Alex Golden NBA. I think he has a Pacers pod, right? Spencer, you've been on his pod before?
Yeah, Alex is great. Setting the Pace is the name of his pod, I believe. So go check that out if you want some Indiana Pacers chat. Yeah. Alex is he's the guy. He's the guy, a friend of the pod.
Yeah, we had a couple Pacer fans that have sent in questions. So is Cody Zeller, well, it makes sense here, Indiana guy, is Cody Zeller the long-term answer at center, or should the Hornets look to upgrade at that position? I'm going to keep my answer short to this question. Is he the long-term answer? No. But would it be smart to try and re-sign him as Bismack is coming off the books and the roster in the offseason? I think if you can find a way to do it to make the money work, you go after him and you want to retain him and keep him in a Charlotte Hornets uniform. It's just so weird, this center position. We've talked about it before. It's just so complicated with Vernon Carey Jr. and Nick Richards. I'm still to this day not understanding why we drafted/traded for 2 centers in the second round. Like what was the reasoning behind that? But
the Richards pick, crowded. The Richards pick is like, it's baffling. I think the Vernon Carey Jr. one pick is too that early.
Yeah.
But at least you could at least say like, well, we really saw something in this guy and he's a development piece. And I don't know, Nick Richards is older and you moved an asset to get back into the draft to take this guy ahead of someone like Isaiah Joe, who's had some good moments for Philadelphia this season, by the way. So yeah, I don't know. But that pick, ultimately it's not, I don't think it's going to matter that much, but it just, so right now it does not look like a real winner, nor did it on the night of the draft.
It was dumb when it happened.
Yeah.
And if you want proof of that, you can go back and watch our draft show that night, because we were not pumped. When Carey was picked where he was, but I mean, I agree with you, Richie. Long term, certainly not, but I actually think Cody Zeller is perfect for this roster right now. Where we sit today, the young guys. I think he's, we haven't seen it enough yet, but he's going to have a really nice synergy with LaMelo Ball. We actually have seen it some, And I mean, he's going to get that guy more space going downhill. And he's also going to have a nice synergy with Gordon Hayward. I look forward to seeing those two guys play a more two-man game too. So if Cody can stay healthy, I really do believe that he is kind of what stirs the drink for the Hornets right now. Just on both ends of the floor, he can make them a team good enough that I think can finish in the top 8 of the East. I think you take him out. Let's say he only played 50% of the games from here on out. Knock on wood. Hope that doesn't happen. But like, to me, I kind of know what everything else on this team is, but he adds that layer of a dynamic offense because of what he can do in the short roll, the dribble the DHO, and then he just keeps your head afloat defensively. Like, he's the difference between Hornets being top 8 and maybe all the way down to 13th, 14th. So.
God, what year is it, man? Like, talking about
I mean,
talking about the in-season health of Cody Zeller relative to like whether Charlotte can get the 8th seed or not. I mean, this is like this is a 2017 conversation that has that is amazingly like he stood the test of time. Like, he's still here, you know, like he still is.
And he looks good, by the way. He looks athletic. He looks like he looks quick. I mean, I didn't expect Cody Zeller to look like this even before the injury he suffered earlier in the year. I just thought, like, you know, injuries, age, like it's caught up to him. I love Cody Zeller, but he looks really good to me. And he's one of those players that you can't, like, if you only watch the Hornets once every 2 weeks, you're not going to watch them and be like, man, Cody Zeller is what makes it go for them. Yeah. But if you watch him every night, you understand it very clearly.
Good point.
Yeah. And I think even in a more sort of like egalitarian offense, not just like, you know, 60 pick and rolls per game with Kemba, you're going to see even more of like Zeller's, like his just like random screening away from the basketball. He's perfect for getting the ball from one side to the other because he can run DHO. He can screen. I tweeted out a possession the other night from the Milwaukee game where like he ran a DHO, then the ball got swung back to the other side to Melo, who drove baseline against Lopez on a switch. And as that was happening, I think it was Rozier filled to the corner, and Zeller like went over there instead of flare screen, and LaMelo ended up kicking the ball back out to PJ, who then swung it to Hayward for in the corner for 3, and it was just like this was a team possession totally. The ball movement was great, but like it was his ability to be like the fulcrum offensively here, and just again willing to stick his nose in on screens that is such a linchpin for them offensively. And we saw this when Cody was out. Like the offensive lineups with Biz on are just like it doesn't work, man. It just doesn't. Like it's like that's not even against Biz. Like his value to this roster is in his ability to be a leader, you know, like in his ability to be a vet. Like that's obviously, yes, every so often you need him to come in and bang and get rebounds or whatever, but like his value is far more intangible than what Zeller does just in terms of his on-court abilities. And we've even seen the last couple of games, like they'll just give Cody the ball in the middle of the court. You know what I mean? Like 5 out, ball in Zeller's hands, pick a side, and we're going to go into DHO here. And then we get to the Chicago action, and then we get to that delay 45 look on the backside. And they've been running a lot of stuff off that, even though they're not finding that initial cutter. They're looking for pin downs and for threes and for reversing the ball back to the other side of the court. So do I think Cody Zeller is the long-term answer? I think no. Maybe it depends on what your definition of long-term is. If you're thinking of someone tethered, to the LaMelo Ball experience for anything more than like 2 or 3 years, like definitely not. But yeah, dude, can Zeller be a really good, when healthy, be a good stopgap? Doesn't really do him enough service when he's playing this well, but ultimately they're going to need to find a rim runner in the middle of the court, right? Like this stuff with Miles Bridges is great. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about what are the best pieces to put around LaMelo going forward. Like if you want to do that, you got to have a 7-footer, 6'11" guy in the middle that can jump up and catch a lob, I think. I mean, like ultimately, if you're going to like get the best version of LaMelo, you have to have that kind of threat in the middle. I suppose the case can be made that maybe LaMelo would be better with a guy like Zeller that's maybe a little bit more below the rim, unless he's trying to dunk on Giannis. But
I'm about to say, Brian, how could you?
Yeah, no shade on Zeller. I mean, occasionally he'll jump up and surprise you, I guess. But like maybe LaMelo would he pair better with a guy that can play in space and short roll and pass. And I don't know. We'll see. But I think it would be a real big value add for them to have a guy, a 7-foot that could rim run in the middle. We've talked about this before in the pod, but like Evan Mobley checks both of these boxes. If you've watched any of USC or any of Mobley this year, he's probably my favorite prospect in the draft. And I mean, I don't think the Hornets are going to end up with him, but he could do both of these things.
Not to be like negative revisionist history guy, but how about Christian Wood on this team?
Oh my God, yeah. Speaking of 2017,
I'm pretty sure the
Hornets
were that. Yeah, I mean the
Yeah.
Hornets were there, and I'm not even talking 2017.
God.
I'm talking in free agency. I think they were. If
Yeah,
they wanted him,
right.
They could have had him.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
so but
Man,
got Gordon Hayward instead for a lot more money, but he's been awesome. So I'm not gonna.
that's a good point.
But
Great point.
I have to think about it.
It's a great point. He's like an ideal fit too, because he can step out and shoot three. Same with Mobley, but Mobley's going to end up, on some other team. We'll have to be haunted by him for the next decade or whatever.
This would be like in between a 10 and 15 offense in the NBA with Christian Wood right now, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If not scratching into a top 10. But anyways, whatever.
I remember
he's really good.
My first piece for Queen City Hoops, Spencer, was profiling Christian Wood. Summer
How he was the center of the future, right? So
yeah.
and here we are. 4 years later.
Yeah.
To Brian's point about the offense and just Cody Zeller subbing in for Biyombo, the team has just been so much better. And a lot of the slow starts have been because of these poor offensive showings. And, Borrego's had to make some changes with his rotations and trying to get things going. Now that we have Zeller, that stabilizes it a little bit more on the offensive side. And obviously it's a small sample size just because of the minutes that Zeller has played compared to some of the other players. But if you look at some of his on-off numbers, he adds 5.9 points per 100 possessions on offense, which is in the 78th percentile. Go look at Biyombo's real quick on cleaning the glass. You can get a laugh there. Spencer shaking his head no. But, just with him on the court, the assists go up, second chance points go up. For a team that struggles in the half court, his screen setting is badly needed. His short roll passing is needed. Everything that he provides for this team is really needed. And to Spencer's point, if you're not watching this team consistently, you don't really understand his value. But you sit down and you watch 5-10 games straight, you'll understand why this offense clicks when he's out there. Okay, I guess if you guys don't want to look, Biyombo's negative 15.5 first percentile. So.
Let's go, Biz. By the way, and Richie, I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to read these numbers off a couple minutes ago. But Charlotte's shot chart with Zeller out there this season is really, really great. About 55% effective shooting. 37% of their attempts are at the rim. Great number. And 43% of their field goal attempts are three-pointers. Less than 20% of their field goal attempts are coming from the mid-range. So, Zeller is one of those guys that helps you get the ball when he's out there. His screening, his passing, his ability to draw gravity to the rim, like all of that stuff helps you get to these money areas that James Borrego certainly wants to target.
And one thing too, like he's only played like 7 or 8 games, so he's still working on that chemistry with all these teammates. So I can only imagine that maybe the offensive production when he's out there at least slightly improves a little bit. All right, let's get to the last listener question at Sweatbox Program on Twitter. Question says this: thoughts on a Ball, Monk, Hayward, Bridges starting lineup with either Washington or Zeller at the 5. Now, I'm assuming this question assumes that Rozier is back and healthy, and he's just being shifted to the bench. I'm still not understanding why fans of this team are just totally just shifting Devontae Graham from this situation altogether. Like, I personally would be totally fine if you're going to insert LaMelo into the starting lineup. Why can't we just use him like we have been with Rozier being injured, like DG and LaMelo together, plus Hayward, plus PJ, plus Cody Zeller? I think that would be fine too. I just think the equation here is always eliminating Devontae Graham. Now, to Brian's point, he's probably better suited for a guy that comes off the bench and lights you up on offense, but to me, like whenever you bring up these LaMelo situations, I just feel like Devontae is always on the back burner, and just people don't think about how good he's been in the past handful of games.
Polarization. You enter a guy like LaMelo Ball into the conversation, it becomes a polarized conversation immediately. And you know, that's so a lot of it lacks context, I think. Not to call anybody out, but I just don't take many of these LaMelo Ball needs to be in the starting lineup yesterday conversations very seriously. It's been working. He's gonna find his way to the starting lineup. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with James Borrego asking a 19-year-old kid who frankly hasn't proven that much until this year that he needs to earn his keep. Like call me old school. I don't understand what's wrong with that. And again, it's been working.
Yeah.
Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But to kind of answer this question, you know, I think the thought of Monk in the starting lineup is interesting, but I think his long-term fit is coming off the bench as a heated up kind of guy offensively. They could play on the ball, could play off the ball, bomb it. And the most interesting thing about this too, the PJ Washington, you know, in there at the 5, I think PJ's got, talking about guys that need to prove something, I think he tops that list out for the Hornets right now. I'm a little nervous about his minutes just in general, especially in leverage situations. He does not look good. We'll see what this injury looks like.
That Heat game was not good for him, Spencer.
He just doesn't have any lift. Like, he just has nothing at the rim or going to the rim. I don't know. I thought he looked better. I thought maybe after the first week of the season, and he's struggling. He's really struggling. And maybe it's just a confidence thing, but to me, it just looks like he doesn't have the burst off the ground or with his first step that he had last year. I'm just a little confused at this point.
The finishing against Miami was pretty tough to watch before the injury. And look, this team needs PJ now, and they need him in the future. Like, he's a seemingly a foundational element here. And I do like, in an optimized version, how he fits with LaMelo Ball on the offensive end. I think there's some really appealing stuff those guys can do with one another, certainly in the pick and pop game. I do think in the Milwaukee game, while PJ, he was battling foul trouble, I thought he at least did a good job just sort of like stepping up and being like, look, I'm just not going to get the calls. Like, I got to guard this monster in the middle of the court, and the refs are doing me no favors. Sidebar, I'm like not a guy that usually likes to like gripe about the refs. I usually don't care that much, but man, they just let Giannis do whatever he wants in the middle of the court. I mean, I know he draws a lot of foul. Like, I know he's in foul trouble a lot too, even for a guy that doesn't play a ton of minutes or hasn't over the majority of his career. But man, I mean, it must be just so frustrating to play this guy. It's like he just has every physical advantage over you. And it's just, you're just helpless. Like, even if you're a tough guy and you stand in and try to guard him, it's like, I mean, buddy, you ain't playing but more than 20 whatever minutes tonight. You're gonna get in foul trouble, if not foul all the way out of the game. So
they officiate him. Sorry, Brian. Yeah, they officiate him as like a superstar guard, but he's like actually like Shaq. And it's like, this is like, I agree. He transcends what a superstar whistle should be. And I had the same take the other night. It was very frustrating.
Yeah. It just over and over, you knew what was going to happen. They're like, you're going to throw it to Giannis in the middle of the court. There's not really a plan. He's just going to steamroll and spin and elbow and get his way right to the rim. And it's what makes him an MVP. Like, he's unstoppable. Like, I agree. Like, I like Giannis. Like, I'm not even like knocking him. But yeah, the way because he's amazing, but the way he's officiated is just, it's a little baffling because like he's able to just do so much. And again, maybe that's part of his brilliance, but this is probably something that like Harden a couple years ago, James Harden was hitting on a couple years ago, but didn't quite, spell it out this way. But when he basically said like, yeah, like, what makes Giannis so great is that he's like big and he can dunk on everybody. When they were, this was like during the 2019 MVP sort of debate or whatever between Giannis and Harden. And I don't know if you were to get like a more like longer winded answer from Harden on this, I wonder if he would talk about some of the things we're mentioning now, just to sort of, now I guess maybe it would be funny to think about Harden critiquing officiating on his own right. But yeah, I thought at least PJ like stepped up and was like, well, it's not my night to be like a featured guy because like I'm taking a beating and I'm in foul trouble. But at least I thought his like verve defensively that night was good. But yeah, the finishing against Miami was obviously like it. It was not great. Several guys last night had trouble finishing at the rim, but PJ probably topped that list.
Yeah, you could probably say that every night. Finishing at the rim is an issue for the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
We are going to get to the last segment here, a very, like I said, very topical segment, buying and selling stock of two players. So we'll buy one and we'll sell another. Now, you've been living under a rock. Maybe you don't understand why this is a trendy topic. What was this, like 4 or 5, I don't know, a week ago, whatever,
Yeah.
when GameStop.
Last week.
GameStop stock rose, skyrocketed. And I actually had to because it reminded me of a episode in The Office where Michael Scott was trying to understand what a surplus was. And he was like, explain this to me like I'm 5, because I did not know what was going on. Spencer, can you explain it a little bit better than I'm getting ready to? Because was it as simple as like people on Reddit bought stock to skyrocket these prices to kind of basically screw over some hedge fund investors? Like, is that the gist of it?
Yeah, that's exactly what. Well, number one, it's the power of the internet. Yeah, it's the middle class retail investors bought off this stock. So what hedge funds do is they bet against they bet that companies will fail, and when that happens, companies they make money basically without going into all that. So what this was called, what happened with GameStop, was a short squeeze. So a bunch of people on the internet got together and threw their money on the table. And there were probably some very rich people, cloaked as Mother Teresa, in on this too. So I don't want to call them all, middle class investors. And they said, yeah, we're gonna say F you to this hedge fund, and it worked. That's the power of the internet. That's some crazy stuff. Now, GameStop, to your point, is it's a bloodbath today. So coming crashing back down to earth. So you feel bad for a lot of these people that held on to that stock that actually are middle-class investors, and now they lost their whole portfolio, right? But
they also sunk ahead. This is the Melvin Capital, like the hedge fund too. But they just
they
completely
did what they set
like
out to do. Right.
I mean that like it they did that. That's a thing that happened actually last week. The Melvin Capital, which is the one that had taken such a huge position, shorting GameStop. As like a sort of like the stock of a failing a dying retail giant, and yeah, like Melvin Capital's gone now, right? Like am I understanding that correctly? Like Melvin Cap doesn't exist anymore as a company, at least like in terms of like active investing or whatever.
That's a good. I don't know that to be sure. I know that D12 or Steve Cohen's investment company pumped a bunch of new owner of the Mets. I know he
multiple billions of dollars
in to try to help him survive. I think. Yeah, who knows? But anyways, Richard, yes, I mean that's basically what happened.
Okay. So I was like Michael Scott in that situation, trying to explain what a surplus was. So let's go through this quickly and we'll just rattle off who we're going to sell and who we're going to buy. Spencer, I don't think you're going to be happy with who I'm selling here. So I'm going to go ahead and sell Caleb Martin. Now I'm a little bit more conservative with like stocks and stuff like that. So his answer intertwines with my next answer. So here's what I'll say. I still think that he's going to be used situationally, and he's definitely hit some tough shots over the course of the season. I think in Milwaukee several nights ago. But I think on the whole, his role on this team, once when Rozier gets back, is going to be on a downward trend. He's still a good defender. He's still someone that can hit the occasional three in a tough spot. And I probably won't make a ton of money selling him, but I do feel like he's at a point to where it's going to be on the downward trend. So I'm going to go ahead and sell my stock with Caleb Martin. Again, it might not make me a lot of money and I might regret this, but that's what I'm going to do. And then to finish it off, the stock that I am going to buy, and I need to clarify this, I bought this stock prior to the game against the Heat. I'm buying Malik Monk. So as I was prepping for this podcast, he was the first name that I put down. His price was seemingly low prior to the Miami Heat game. And I was banking on the fact that his finishing at the rim would increase for a team that struggles. They need that. His playmaking fits perfectly into what Charlotte is trying to do. So it looks like he's working his way back into the room with James Borrego. And that's what I'm saying. I think his play time is going to come at the expense of Caleb Martin, especially when Rozier is back healthy. So selling Caleb, buying Malik might not be the sexiest of picks there. It might be a little bit conservative, but that's where I'm going.
Okay, I like that. So I've owned Malik Monk stock for a very long time, lost some money, mostly lost money on it, made some money here. I'm selling Malik Monk stock this morning. And that's not because I do think you're right about that, Richie. I do think that he does probably replace at least a good portion of those Martin twin, Jalen McDaniels if he comes back minutes. I agree. So there's reason to think that this could keep trending upwards, but this is as high as it's going to get to me. I don't see him having another night like he did last night. So I'm going to go ahead and get off that stock, cash out. But with the caveat that I do expect pretty good things from Monk for the rest of the season if he can stay healthy. I'm buying Cody Zeller stock. I think it's been pretty low for all the reasons that we've kind of laid out in this episode. I think that Zeller's never going to put up big numbers. He's never going to attract a ton of eyeballs, but he's one of those guys that helps the ship sail a little smoother from a team perspective. And I think as the wins pile up, if he stays healthy, that's the number one risk I'm taking here, if he can stay healthy. But as the wins pile up, the Hornets stock prices, the team goes up, Cody's is going to rise up. So it's a little bit of a conservative bet on him, but I think that I can make some money on the margins with Zeller.
Yeah, these are all savvy investment tools here, and kudos to you guys. We'll stop. Maybe we'll create our own little a boutique investment firm where we just advise on who's trending upward amongst the 15 players on the Charlotte Hornets roster. I feel like there's a small but niche and important market that would be interested in those decisions. Yeah, it's tough to say. Everyone, like, the vibes are just so good around this team right now. Yeah, Malik's not going to shoot that well from three again, but I think you can see him get to some more of the stuff that we saw last season as far as getting to the rim. We hit on that earlier in the episode. I don't really feel good about doing this, but if I had to sell stock in some Hornet, how about I'm gonna look over at Terry Rozier, who's having he's shooting the ball well this season. Certainly an important scorer for Charlotte, no doubt. But in his movement shooting is something that, unless Devontae can get there, can't really be replicated on this roster. But we saw some of that with Devontae last night against Miami. We've seen some of it this season. But just his assignment defensive acumen, I'm not in love with. I think it's sort of like up and down. And I don't think he's like on a night-to-night basis. I think he messes up a lot on the defensive end. I like some of his shot creation aspects, but not like out of a standstill pick and roll. Not like that's a huge deal on this team. But if I just had to pick one guy, I would say we'll just see how Charlotte plays while Terry, while Terry's out. We'll see how long that is. Maybe he'll be back soon. And as far as like stock, if I were to buy stock in someone, the price on buying stock LaMelo is probably too high. How about can I get some like cryptocurrency and LaMelo Ball? Can I do that? No. I'll be boring and I'll go with Cody Zeller here too, because I just really do think his value on both ends of the court. He is a legit two-way player for this roster. Outside of maybe Gordon Hayward, I'm not sure how many legit two-way guys this roster has. And Zeller can be a benefit for them on both ends. Conservative, but it can be a little volatile too, just because the injury history. So yeah. I'm selling my stock in Terry Rozier, though I don't feel good about that because I think Terry's done some nice things this season. And Richie, I think you did the best job selling stock in Caleb, because Caleb was basically playing Malik's role, and now Malik is seemingly back. We'll see, I guess. And then I'll buy stock in Cody Zeller.
Well, very good. I think you could almost make the argument that Terry Rozier has been like the second or third best player on this team this year. So if you are selling him, Brian, it might be at a peak for him. So
exactly.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Brian, let's talk. You can skip the broker. Maybe we can do a cash deal on Terry, and you can save a little money on the margins there.
Perfect. All right, I'm in for that. All right. I've also got Steve Ballmer.